the Ammit AR2. Now this weapon hardly needs an introduction, mainly because it has been widely discussed by every Destiny 2 YouTuber, and for good reason. The weapon handles and shoots extremely well, easily making one of my favorite auto rifles, that being Firefight, nearly obsolete in comparison. Now before I upset any Firefight fans, I'm going to jump right into the perks that I'll be using for this weapon. Perks that will be kept constant are polygonal rifling, high caliber rounds, as well as the range masterwork, or intrinsic. I'm using backup mag here for a larger mag size, and like my Firefight review, I do not feel the necessity of the counterbalance mod. With all that said, here are the timestamps for each of the roles in the video. Now let's talk surplus and tap the trigger. This is flat out the go-to god role for PvP because it takes advantage of your ability uptime to grant you tangible benefits to your gun engagement. Simply put, having the stability, handling and reload of the weapon being close to, if not already reaching, the 100 stat, allows you more or less guaranteed kills so long as your reticle is on the enemy. Additionally, tap the trigger has immensely good synergy with the weapon's origin trait, that being Ammit Fluid Dynamic, which grants bonus stability and reload speed for the top half of the magazine. This increase in reload speed of the origin trait feeds back into the surplus's increased reload, basically ensuring an endless cycle of consistency.
Now I know what many of you may be thinking, oh wow, he reviewed this in Eruption and not something like Control. That's not exactly fair because Surplus is kind of busted or broken in Eruption because your ability uptime is basically tied to how many kills you are able to secure. And you're right, it is actually busted in Eruption. But the reason I didn't play Control was not because I wanted to be busted or anything, because if you want to see how well it fared without abilities, you can check the well-rounded section anyways. But the main point that I was trying to illustrate here was the fact that, you know, Surplus is good, and I was keeping it to Surplus specifically, and also because, well, Control, there was basically nobody playing it because of the dumpster fire that was the matchmaking. I did include a small snippet from a section of a Rumble game, because I just wanted to see how it fared normally, without the need for anything like the ability regeneration or whatever have you.
Dynamic sway reduction and tap the trigger. Now don't get me wrong, this is a good perk combination, and the enhanced versions of dynamic sway and tap the trigger allow both perks to overlap, albeit slightly. However, I often don't fire long enough to make use of it, mainly because I'm used to the tap firing and peak shooting nature that I find suits the gun best. I suppose if you need sustained fire to kill guardians and supers, that would be an excellent option. But if you don't have that on your mind, you would definitely lose out to the role that preceded it.
The one specific advantage of dynamic sway reduction is that you do not need to have your abilities be up to leverage the advantages that you can get from the perk. Unlike Surplus and Well-Rounded, which both require the abilities to be up and in the reserve, or used in the engagement respectively, dynamic sway reduction gives a flat benefit just by holding the trigger. However, since it does not synergize very well with the origin trait, and a really good origin trait at that, of Ammit Fluid Dynamic, I cannot say with certainty that this is the perk option that I will carry through when I use it in Crucible. Because simply put, Surplus allows you to secure the kill within the time frame that tap the trigger is present before it expires. Again, this is my personal preference, so feel free to disagree with what I have mentioned.
As discussed in an earlier video, Well-Rounded on its enhanced version increases the benefit of the range, stability and handling as opposed to the duration of Well-Rounded. This makes it sort of a reverse playstyle to Surplus, as you are freely able to use your abilities to benefit your gunplay, as opposed to saving them. And frankly, the added range does let me hit for full damage out of what I normally would say it should, with the added stability and handling ensuring that I'm able to do so consistently. The only word of advice I would give is for players to learn where the range benefit ends, and to not rely on it too much, because your brief moment in the spotlight being able to challenge short-range scout rifles may quickly turn sour when you expect the same range consistency without Well-Rounded.
And I'm pretty sure it's self-explanatory from the video itself, but most of the clips that are showcased here, I did not really have Well-Rounded active, nor was it active for very long that I was able to take advantage of it anyways. As a result, this was more like a null test where I actually tested the Ammit AR2 without surplus rather than me testing it with surplus, so to speak. And for the most part, even when I did not use it with well-rounded, it was still very promising. The few times that I did have well-rounded proc though, you did see me being slightly more bolder with my decisions to engage at a further distance. But other than that, that is basically it.
For PvE, I'm only gonna talk about one specific role. This perk combination is definitely the winner, that being Ambitious Assassin and Incandescent. And if you really want proof, well, here it is. Now, one thing to mention when crafting this weapon for PvE specifically is to not even bother with the enhanced Ambitious Assassin, because why? If you need more convincing, think of it this way. You only need 8 kills to yield the maximum benefit of Ambitious Assassin on any primary weapon, and that really isn't that difficult. So after your 8 kills, you are still sitting at the top half of the magazine. So do you really even need the 5 extra reload? But if you're after the golden sheen of a perfectly crafted weapon, then by all means. Personally, I intend to create a separate Ammit AR2 sometime in the future, where I use one purely for PvE without the normal Ambitious Assassin. And as such, I wanted to see what normal Ambitious Assassin would have done. And after I checked the description of normal Ambitious Assassin and the enhanced version, I decided on the spot that it wasn't really worth the Ascendant Alloy. Also because I'm saving my Ascendant Alloy for the BXR review, which will be next week. One perk that I wanted to try was Gutshot Straight, because I wanted to see if it was as bad as what the other YouTubers have mentioned. In fact, I think it's worse. It's bad enough that I don't even want to show the gameplay. Sure, the enhanced version makes it slightly more usable, but is more damage and body shot at that even worth the decrease in target acquisition? To me, it isn't, and frankly, I think it's a waste to even consider as an option. Overall, surplus and tap the trigger takes the cake, and that is tied with well-rounded and tap the trigger. Why I say so is because both perks revolve solely on the playstyle which suits you, be it the aggressor or the conserver. Dynamic sway and tap the trigger by default comes last, but it definitely still is worth using. It just doesn't suit me. But if you find the benefit of laying down on the trigger, then by all means use dynamic sway reduction, because the benefit is noticeable. In my opinion, this weapon sits at a PvP and PvE 4.5 out of 5. Why I say so is that there will always be better options for ad clear for PvE, and not everyone enjoys using precision frame auto rifles in PvP. But I do urge you to give this one a shot, especially with how good it feels to just shoot. If you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see ya in the next one.